Hey guys, Philosopher here, and today I have my top 10 to invest in list. This is always my most popular video every month, and these are the top 10 characters not in the game, not the top 10 characters in the game, the top 10 characters to invest in for the future, and that's a very important point. You know, a character like Gamora, very powerful still, super powerful, but she dropped off the top 10 to invest in list some months back because I was apparent that for the future, her value was going down. So what this is if you're looking at these characters like stocks, if you had all the characters unlocked and didn't have any gear invested, which characters would you want to pour your gear and your red stars into? That's what this video is about. It is all about investing in the future because that is the smart way to think about this game, is to try to get the most bang for your buck out of the resources that you have in the game, because heck, Scopely does not give us nearly enough resources, let's face it. All right, so here's my list from last month, and it's interesting. There are some changes this month, but not as many as you think, because there's all these OP characters that came out last year, starting with Silver Surfer and then a whole slew after that, but not the ones from this patch weren't quite as impactful. So let's go to my list this time, and we're going to start with who is off the honorable mention list. There's only one character, and that is Shang-Chi. And you may be wondering yourself, wait, Philosopher, you're crazy. I know I'm going to start getting some hateful comments below. Why would you say that? Shang-Chi's amazing. I've brought him to DD5. I love him, whatever. Look, he's very good. Don't get me wrong. He's a very good character. But let's just get real here. In raids, he's the fifth guy that you throw in with Secret Avengers and Kestrel. And I don't even use him on all the nodes. Like on the second node, I use Zemo, who works a lot better because he puts Disrupt on shield security and ability block Surfer. So I'm basically using this guy on like one node in the Doom raid, and he's a war defense character. And you know what? Once your opponents have Omega Red and Weapon X, which they do at my level, everyone does, and they will soon at yours. The next time Weapon X comes around or the Omega Red unlock comes around, a lot more players are going to have him. It doesn't matter how big your heroes for hire are, they're going to get rolled by Weapon X. So to me, once we get a fifth skill character that is better than him, this guy's just a war defense character. Like, who cares? Okay. And, frankly, with, Grand Tournament coming out, which it looks like there's going to be Grand Tournament tags, as opposed to a war defense team, you're going to need a Grand Tournament defense team. I don't see him being as impactful there. And frankly, when we look at raids, even now, you could just stick in Gamora or Moondragon or whatever instead of him, and I think you're fine. So I'm dropping him off, not because he isn't great now, and certainly if I was looking at the top 10 to 20 characters now, he'd certainly be in that conversation because he's a strong standalone character. As anybody who uses who plays a little bit of RTA knows, but that's not what this list is. This is investment for the future, and I don't see the future value there until or unless they give him his own separate team when there's a Shang-Chi sequel. Maybe, maybe not. I can't speculate on what that could do in the future or when that could happen. All right, now let's go to the honorable mentions that are still on the list. And this brings me to my first new character. And by the way, the only character that's like solidly on this list in some capacity as a new character, and that is Star-Lord T'Challa. He is on the honorable mention list, and the reason I threw him here is because he has a very special ability. Right now, he is the only character in the game who can steal ability energy. And as a standalone character, even if you don't have your Ravagers built, you can throw him in war on a mishmash team and just shut down enemy Silver Surfer, for example. And I imagine in the future in Arena or Grand Tournament or other game modes, there will be times when you really want to have this very specialized ability, and he has that. Now you may say, wait, well, Philosopher, why isn't he on the list? Because then why is he just honorable mention? To me, he's kind of a one-trick pony in that regard. In other words, other than that piece, he's basically just a single target damager. Now he's got the highest damage stat in the game, don't get me wrong, but he's kind of brittle, he's hard to keep alive. The rest of this is, he copies positive effects from adjacent allies. Okay, depends on the team, but just it's single target attack damage, single target attack damage, single target attack damage. like I say, he's very survivable because he does gain evade on his turn, but he does give himself some speed bar. But I don't see him in the level of a character where, like a Kestrel or a Silver Surfer, where Silver Surfer removes charges, which is totally unique, but he does a lot of other stuff too, right? Or Kestrel. Yes, she's got this special ability to prevent cloning, but she does all this other stuff. Scarlet T'Challa is more of a one-trick pony, so I have him in the honorable mention category. Still very good. The other honorable mentions are all there other than Shang-Chi. That is Bishop. Only if you have Jubilee. If you haven't unlocked Jubilee yet, I don't think he's worth worrying about until you get her. But this trio with Jubilee and Beast is very good, and certainly he's still part of the best mutant rating solution, although that may change. We just don't know when. There's lots of rumors and speculation that go around, but they're not always right. There was a lot of people talking about mutants coming out in the next patch, and that doesn't look to be the case, at least as far as I can tell. So for right now, he is the biggest character in the X-Men to invest in because he is the tank and the damager. So getting him big is the key to having a successful X-Men team. Adam Warlock standalone, still very strong standalone character. Even if his team fell off, and let's face it, in the legendary section of DD 5 and 6, it's very unlikely that you're going to have 5 legendaries better than him anytime soon. Maria Hill is still very strong. I don't see the Secret Avengers going anywhere soon. And she also has the shield tag, which makes her helpful in gamma raids. Lady Deathstrike, helpful in tech raids, and a strong standalone character, in addition to her value on more offense. So a lot of honorable mentions. And that brings me now past that to a very special case of the Web Warriors. I feel like my views on the Web Warriors have been controversial. Sometimes they've been misunderstood. And I want to make something crystal clear. I do like the Web Warrior team. I think they're very, very good at raids. But the reason I say they're a special case is I think they've been designed by the devs to do two things very specifically. One is there's no one character here that stands out as like a super solo character, right? With the Ravagers, it's T'Challa's got this solo potential. Here, the best solo character is Ghost Spider or Spider-Gwen. But like on her own, like she's just okay. I mean, she applies an ability block, which I like. Okay, turn 1, but then she can't spread it. And they really made it so all the spreading from this team doesn't spread the really cool stuff, okay? And some of the spreading is even less than some of the other characters. So, she is good, but she's not amazing, okay? And from a top 10 to invest in list, is she in the same caliber of some of the bottom of my list? People like, Silver Surfer, who people have told me shouldn't be on the list. Like, as a standalone character, she's nowhere near as good. Now, the thing is, this is your bio raid solution for quite some time. And that's good, because I don't think they're going to introduce a new team soon. But I have to say, they're not that great elsewhere. They're just okay-ish elsewhere. A lot of their kit is purposely tied to raids, and a lot of stuff in the kit calls out to each other or requires a certain number of allies, so that this way, you have to have, there's all this stuff about raiding, okay, in raids, what they get, or there's stuff where, for example, if she's got 4 allies, then you get ability energy all in raids. There's so much of this that's in raids, and so much of it that you need all of them together, that no character stands out, and you don't get like the bang for your buck. So to me, when you build a team like New Warriors or something, that team is so great everywhere, and you're getting so much value out of them in War and Blitz or whatever. This team is good, but they're not at quite that power level. And I think this is Scopely's reaction to players focusing just on raid teams. So what Scopely wants you to invest in tons of teams so that they can make you feel pressured to buy offers because you don't have enough resources. And so they don't want you to just be able to build raid teams and use them everywhere else to beat everything else. And so what they've done is made their raid team only good at raids and make it sort of you have to build all of them together. And then you're going to have to build other teams for other things. So is this team good? Good to have? Yes. Is there any character that stands out on a character basis to be on the top 10 to invest in lists? No. And that is why they are my second ever special case. The other one being Heroes for Hire, who were So important for players who cared about war, but they're a war defense team, and I couldn't recommend I couldn't recommend them for most players. So that is sort of where I regard Web Warriors. They're certainly needed for bio raids to have them big enough to do what they're going to do, but other than that, they're not really an investment for anything other than that, and none of them stand out individually. So now let's go down to the 10th character on my list, and that remains Sharon Carter. Sharon Carter is a very underrated character. I get people telling me all the time that she's nothing that special. What's so great about Sharon Carter? And I have to say, she has very, very strong standalone value and does really well, even outside of her team. I mean, to me, a big part of it is this ability right here. Clearing all positive effects in the primary target and applying stun in particular on turn 1 and getting 5,000% extra focus. I have not found a character yet that resists this. I mean, Colossus, Cull, whatever you got, she will strip all their positive. She'll strip their positive effects to all their positive effects and stun them. And it's a very powerful opening move that, frankly, when I'm giving new players advice about making teams, I often will have them throw in Sharon Carter because that opening move is devastating. Obviously, a 2-turn ability block is great as well. She's got the slow here for 3 turns. I mean, she's got a lot of great stuff here, but she is awesome, and she hits pretty hard once you have her built up large, and she is attainable for players as well. So definitely a character worth investing in. For a lot of free-to-play players, this is one of the few characters that you can easily get to 7 yellow stars, and you might consider using some of those new gold promos you got from Pocket Dimension to bring her to 6 red stars like I did. All right, the number 9 character on the list probably won't surprise you because I talked about him, is Silver Surfer. And Silver Surfer, by the way, has been one of the most controversial characters in this list. I constantly get people who are arguing with me about this, saying, wait, Philosopher, I don't use Silver Surfer in Raid, so what's the point of him? He's just a war character. And I don't think you understand what this is about, this list is about. Silver Surfer on his own is an incredibly strong character. And in any game mode, if you have not just war, but if there's something like a Pocket Dimension or Avengers Tower, or now they're going to have Grand Tournament coming out this year, Silver Surfer standalone is going to be a huge impact. And I will just say, at the level war I'm at, where everybody seems to have everything in gear tier 15 or higher, with all the yellow stars and all that, red stars, he is a impact character. You just take, there's these guys who have 7 red star, gear tier 15 or 16 Silver Surfers. They just transform a team. People just throw them into their Mercs, throw them into their Web Warriors, throw them into all these teams. And he's such a wild card. He can be very difficult to bring down. He scales super well with gear because he gets all of this healing on his turn. He heals for 5%. He gets speed. He turns into the fastest character in the game very quickly. You've seen in Doom Raid, when you're facing these surfers that can solo your entire team, what it's like when they scale up, and it is very, very scary. And of course, he also has this unique ability where even if his stats get power crept or his kit otherwise gets power crept, for now, he's the only character in the game who can clear charges. For that alone, that gives him a lasting value that I think is going to make this investment pay off for quite some time. So I would still encourage newer players that just unlocked him in the Blitz. He's definitely, I think, worth the investment. That is why he is number 9 on the list. And now number 8 is Cloak and Dagger. You may wonder, why? Philosopher, I get these comments. People are like, this is unfair because Cloak and Dagger are 2 characters and they're in 1 slot. Well, here's my view on it. I think Cloak is good solo, but to be real, you really don't want to invest super hard on these characters unless you have both. And you now have that opportunity in the Greek raid orbs, which is great. But the bottom line is these 2 characters together as a pair, and it is a fact you have to build up 2 characters instead of 1, are ridiculously powerful on their own, even without Deathpool, even without other mystics. They can carry 3 other characters in war, on war defense. They are very strong and require a major response, even with 3 schlubs. You throw Squirrel Girl Drax and some fifth character with these two, and they still require a big response. They're great in Blitz, even carrying 3 schlubs. They are just very, very strong characters, irrespective of raids. And in raids, they're just an I win button where you press buttons and the ult just, annihilates the enemy and debuffs them to, like crazy and all of that. So very, very powerful. A power level of character that is very significant and certainly worth the investment. If you're just starting to get your Cloak and Dagger online, they are worth the investment. In terms of a pair for raids and for war and for everything else, very, very strong, worth the investment long term. All right, now we go to the number 7 on our list, and it is Captain Sam. And I got to say, Captain Sam is a character that when I came out, people were like, oh, are you just a homer? Is it because you love Captain America and Captain Sam so much? And the answer is absolutely not. I mean, he's got some things on his kit that are going to stand the test of time. One of them is turn meter gain. Hit the original Falcon, the old OG Falcon that's super power crept, is still used in war all the time. In my level of war, people are using him constantly because he has that special that gives speed bar. And this is a turn-based game. It's all about taking more turns than your opponent. This ability is huge. And then he's got another ability that gives out ability energy. And we know the characters that are energy batteries also have a long life in this game. So he has both of those. Plus, he still has some very stupid, insane stats here. Almost 1 million health, 40k damage. Now, obviously, it's 7 red stars, super maxed out character. But nonetheless, this character is worth all the investment that I made in him and more, because he's going to have life even when the rest of the team falls off. Even if Sharon Carter and Maria Hill were not worth it anymore. This is a drop into a team, particularly a skill team, but he can a kind of a plug and play tank that's going to have use for quite some time in this game. All right, and now we go to the 6th character on the list, and that is Deathpool. Deathpool is another character standalone that is super powerful. She's somebody I'm sure you've experienced in RTA. If Cloak and Dagger are banned, there you'll still see a lot of people putting Deathpool on their team, and a lot of that is because of her out of turn attack. So whenever an enemy dies, she heals, and then she attacks the most injured enemy for 300% damage and clears 3 positive effects. Very, very powerful. These out-of-turn attack attack mechanics are so underrated, and what they really do, like I said, this is a turn-based game, and it's all about if your character's about to die and you move next, you can heal them up. If the opponent goes next, they'll just kill your character. That's how much having the next turn matters. And here, she essentially cuts in line. So when it's not her turn, she's doing all these attacks. Super, super powerful. People were all focused on the ult when she first came out, this one-shot kill mechanic, 20,000% piercing. But really, that out-of-turn damage is really what is awesome about her. And by the way, she's very survivable, of course, with all the death proofs that she gets when she drops below levels in health. And, she's super strong in terms of stats and all that as well. Just super OP character. Even if she had no tags and wasn't part of any team, she'd still be on this list somewhere. Even maybe further in the bottom of the list, but she'd still be on this list even if she wasn't a new warrior and part of a meta mystic rating team, because she's so powerful on her own and has some really interesting facets to her kit that I think are going to stand the test of time, at least for a good period of time in this game. All right, and then we're going to get to the 5th character on this list, and that's Omega Red. And I got to say, Omega Red to me is just ridiculously OP, and there's an argument to be made to have him higher on the list. And the reason I don't have him higher on the list is, first of all, let me just explain what is great about him. He is insane on his own. This move, flipping and putting out massive damage and ability block, and, in war applies trauma to all enemies, and stealing health, is insane, and it's super powerful, and a lot of you, including me, are using him in Arena because it's just such a powerful ability there. But I will just say in Dark Dimension, this guy was a carry in DD5. In the legendary section, Dark Dimension, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be the same way in DD6 or DD7. It's going to take a long time for there to be 5 legendaries better than this guy introduced into the game. Every one of his abilities has percentage health steal. His basic and his special and his ultimate all have that percentage health steal, which is so helpful in Dark Dimension. And he's a character, in my mind, that is amazing, even though he's not really important in raids at all. Now, I will just say to you that some players have said, well, why isn't he higher on the list? And I think that's part of it. He's not really that big of a deal in raids. Yes, you can throw him in for an ability block in a boss node, but he's just not that important in raids at all, in my opinion. He's also a character that you almost don't want to have him too big, right? Because of the whole Sabretooth thing versus Heroes for Hire, which is a short-term issue, and it's not a big deal. You can win anyway and so forth without, even if you have a small Sabretooth, but it's a little harder. It's a little bit of annoyance. And so to me, right now, this is a character you want to invest in, but having him the biggest, the best, is not quite as important and not quite as an under 100% complete win as the characters before him. So, but it's tough. I mean, I will say these top 5 characters in this list are all very close to each other. Okay? All very close to one another. And now that brings me to the next character on this list. That is Dr. Doom. Another one that I've considered. I considered dropping him below Omega Red, but I got to say, talk about a character that has been underrated by so many. The first time I made one of these lists, I think it was in March of last year, was when I first started content creation. I had Doom as the number 1 character, and I think I had the Long Shot as number 2 back then. This was well before the Silver Surfer meta and all that. A lot less power creep. But I will say that at the time, people were telling me Doom isn't that good. I had unlocked him very early. A lot of people hadn't, but they're like, Doom's not sucks. He's overrated and all that. That is total BS. Here we are a year later, and I have Doom as 4th on my top 10 to invest in list a year after I got him, more than a year after I got him. And I brought him to Gear Tier 16 after I completed Dark Dimension 5 twice because he's so good. I mean, this character is awesome. I use him everywhere, right? Now, he is still the best, let's say the top 2 character in the tech nodes. That may change, may not. For a lot of players, he's still useful in the Mystic nodes. I mean, yes, with my roster, I don't need him. And yes, maybe for some of you, your roster, you don't need him. But he's very good. I mean, you can, with the new Warriors, you can throw any 2 of Doom, Surfer, Dormammu, the Eternals, and you're going to have no problem with the nodes. Now, that may change in the future or whatever, but he's a very viable raid choice. And he's got this ability here where essentially there's a turn-based game, and he takes 6, he gives himself 3 turns, and the ally with the highest damage 3 turns, so 6 turns in a row for his team. It's just super powerful, and we've all seen that Doom can turn the tide, whether it's an RTA or arena or war. If you screw up and you get him, let's say, below 50% at the wrong time, and he gets ability energy and fills his speed bar, he can literally turn around the entire match. It's so powerful. It's something that I think is going to still be relevant for quite some time. And in PvE content like raids, getting this Doombot every turn, that on to turn where he summons a Doombot is still very good for getting the AI to focus on something besides him. So I think he's got a lot of value. I don't think he's going to drop off this list for a while because he also has Tech and Mystic, the 2 dual origins. I think that's good too. So he's going to be on the list for a while. I do think he's certainly starting a slow descent, but it's a slow descent. And I think there's going to be a lot of value for a long time with him. I don't regret getting 5 red stars on him. I don't regret bringing him up to Gear Tier 16 because I use him all over the place. He's that good. He's that important. One of the most impactful characters in the game still over a year after his release. All right, and that brings me to the number 3 character on this list. Not going to surprise you is Kestrel. Now, I got to say, Kestrel has an argument for being even higher on this list, and really, the fact that she isn't higher is a slight, is not a slight on her at all. She hasn't really gone down in value. It's just that there's a few characters that got introduced that are even more bonkers. But this character's bonkers, is going to have a super long shelf life. and is a no-brainer to me to take the 7 red stars and to max out a gear tier 16 because she's just going to be around a long time. She's also got 2 different lanes. The most important tech character in raids right now, maybe the most important character in the skill section as well. And she's got some awesome mechanics here, right? She's the only character in the game that stops characters from cloning or summoning. That's really important ability that even if she was super power crept, you could still use her for. She prevents revives, which can be very important. She was part of the early Heroes for Hire counter before, Shang-Chi and Weapon X were introduced. She's got obviously that out of turn damage, is more than anybody in the game. She does right now these out of turn attacks where she's attacking for 400% damage when an enemy with defense down is attacked. So, and a lot of teams are built around that pinging pinging characters with defense down to get her to attack. So just super powerful characters, going to be around a long time. No question and no brainer investment as far as I'm concerned. So easy top 3 on my list, could be higher. The only reason she isn't higher is because there are some bonkers characters remaining, and one of them is Dormammu. Okay, so now Dormammu is the number 2 on my list, and this was controversial. I got some hate last time about this, like, why do you have Dormammu on the list? I get also comments from people saying they want to find out, is Dormammu worth it? How much did they put into speeding along a DD5? The answer is he's totally worth it. And if this was a best character in the game, best single character in the game, there's no question he'd be number 1. Okay? And I think we all know who my number 1 is going to be. It's not even one single character, but he alone is right now the best character in the game. And he's a character that I think will scale well over time. And the reason I say that is because one of the big things that he does is he essentially gives this mechanic of revive once to the entire team, where you basically get a second life for all your characters, which is absolutely huge. And the nice thing is it applies at spawn. So unless there's some specific character that's designed to negate him, the way that, let's say, Phoenix was negated by Kestrel, or Mr. Sinister is negated by Kestrel, you won't have a problem where he gets so power crept that his speed is an issue. For a character like like Mr. Sinister, everyone thought he was future proof, but then he's so slow now he never takes a turn. He dies before taking a turn. This will never be an issue with Dormammu. As soon as he enters the match, as long as his health is full, you get second lives for your allies. And by the way, as new characters get released, you will get a revive once on them, right? If Apocalypse enters the game, Dormammu can give you a second Apocalypse. It scales with the new characters in the game. So I think that's very powerful mechanic. And by the way, right now, the other stuff he does is totally bonkers, okay? His health, damage, all that is bonkers stats, okay? 1.1 million health, right? And then when you look at what he does, right, he's got, turn 1, he applies stun and trauma for 2 turns, like totally taking anyone, including Doom, out of the fight for 2 turns. All of this clearing all negative effects, applying all these buffs and debuffs to the, all these debuffs to the enemies, all these buffs to your team. I mean, it is absurd. He's very much an I win button, a no-brainer to max out as soon as you get him. So yes, this is obvious, but I want to make it clear for those of you who don't have him, because there's a lot of people who don't have the character but have strong opinions about how good or bad he is, which is silly to me because you don't know what you're talking about. I'm telling you, as somebody who's used him as much as anybody, super, super great character and a game changer in war and so on, and very good in raids if you want to bother using him. Right now, you don't need to in Mystic, but you never know, in a future Doom raid you may need to. But he's just awesome everywhere. He'll be awesome in any game mode he's used in. Was a carry for me at the end of Avengers Tower. I'm sure he'll be impactful in Grand Tournament and so on. And of course, now that brings me to the best characters to invest in. The number 1 characters to invest in, and that is Icarus and Cersei. And you may say, wait, philosopher, if Dormammu is the best character in the game and he's going to have all this staying value, why Icarus and Cersei over him? And I got to tell you, it's actually a really close call. A really close call for me. Because to me, Dormammu is only 1 roster slot. You're getting a lot of bang for your buck there. But I think Icarus and Cersei as a duo are just insane. They carry you can literally just have the 2 of them punch up huge in war, 2 versus 5. The two of them can take a bunch of garbage characters and transform them into a top war defense team. In raids, you don't need them to beat the Mystic sections, but they are the best two to include with the 3 new warriors in the Mystic sections. You use them. I use them in all game modes. They obviously rule Arena, and they will for some time. They're absurd in Dark Dimension because they have the first characters to ever have Arena tags, and they have Dark Dimension tags. And there's only 2 people on their team, so presumably eventually, when they do get power crept, you're going to see all these other Eternals. There's a whole movie full of them. So you know there's going to be a future with all different Eternals, and they'll synergize with them. So, I mean, these 2 are bonkers. They're obviously bonkers. More of you have them than Dormammu, but they're it's a close call for me between 1 and 2. But I think these characters, just in terms of bang for your buck right now, I'm getting so much use out of these 2 characters that it's a no-brainer for me to bring him to 7 red stars. I brought Cersei to 6 red stars. No-brainer for me to max them out after I finish my DD5 runs because they're just so powerful and such worthy investment. This is the team that could get power crept by a good amount and still have power. But really, this is unlike a character like Silver Surfer, where there's a long game where I'm like, even as this character becomes less relevant, he's got this mechanic that's going to carry him for a period of time, or Star-Lord, T'Challa. These characters are just about the here and now. I mean, in other words, it's very hard for me to see in the next few months these characters not just being totally bonkers. And for right now, if you're playing this game, you're going to want to max out these characters. And so for that reason alone, it's just very hard for me to say don't invest in these characters over the other characters in the game. So there's a reason why people are investing in them so heavily, and it's because they're so dang good. All right, guys, if you like this video, please smash that likes button. Please subscribe to this channel. Give me your comments below. If you're happy or sad, you could tell I do read the comments, so please let me know what you think, or go to my Discord. We have lots of great conversations there. You can also go to my Twitch stream, which is linked below as well. And if you want to support the channel, please use the link below to get your Amazon coins because that does support the work we do.